So, what oils can we use for emotional support, whether that's just general stress, daily stress, extreme stress, hysteria, shock, depression, anxiety, anything to do with regulating the nervous system? There's lots of essential oils that we can turn to, and for very specific reasons. So I work with over 150, close to about 200 different essential oils as an aromatherapist. And some of these specialty oils are key for working on emotional support. So I'm going to list the oils that are good for just everyday emotional stress, just stuff that comes up in your family, just regular kind of stress that we have to deal with every day and just push through. As well as I'll have a list of oils that help with depression. So these are oils not specifically for clinical depression, obviously, because that might need something a little bit more key from your doctor. But this, again, is generalized depression. And then I'll also make a list of anxiety oils, as well as these extreme stress response oils for hysteria, shock, um, when you're in the middle of a certain kind of trauma or trying to get out of certain kinds of traumas. So we'll have those four lists below in the blog, and then there's also a list that I already have online, which is the just classic essential oil list. So it has a little bit of everything, like your regulars like eucalyptus and frankincense and manuka and whatnot. So the classic essential oils out there, they can work on anything from the physical, mental, and emotional. So if you have back pain, I'm going to typically refer you to use neroli, black pepper, cypress, some of the citrus oils to start flushing the lymphatic and helping the muscles with that pain. Neroli is really good for helping with nerve pain. So there's lots of essential oils that help on all three levels. But when you have very specific emotional support that you need to key on, so if you're going through chronic issues of any kind and you're dealing with that maybe with a doctor or naturopath or using oils even to help with the physical things, that's great. But when you're undergoing something on a continual basis like that, that's when it's good to have that emotional support. And if you're feeling depressed because of those things, or maybe you're a caregiver and it's hard taking care of yourself or someone, and you just kind of want to go and live your life, and you feel withheld. So anxiety and depression that goes along with those kind of chronic long care things, long term things. That's when it's good to use these emotional oils when you can't get out of a situation, when you just have to endure through a situation, just to help you on that everyday level. So, as I said, there's the oils that will help out with the lymphatic, with the circulatory, with the nervous system. So, they're working on that physical aspect. But then you want those oils, even if you don't have any physical things and you're just getting through work and getting through your life and you have a family and you just wish it could be a little bit better, you're just struggling a little bit, that's when it's great to go for these emotional oils. They'll just give you that lift and pick up. So, in general, all of the essential oils, people will ask me, what's eucalyptus good for? And I'll list a few things off the top of my head, but realistically, each essential oil has 30 to 50 different functions to it on the mental, emotional, and the physical side. So I always go back to my books just because I want to see for sure with each individual customer, client, myself, whatever I'm dealing with, just to make sure that that oil or those couple oils that I want to use are good for that particular moment, that time, that stress, that injury, whatnot. So, as I said, these oils that help out with the physical, like the black pepper, marjoram, neroli, different things like that, all the classic essential oils that most people have heard about and know about, um, are completely fantastic. So, I finished my aromatherapy course to become a certified aromatherapist in 2008, and the information about the oils that affect the mental and emotional were in my course. And I essential oils weren't super big at that time. Like these big companies weren't around really as big as they are right now. But as I started to see these different companies out there growing and more people using essential oils, I kind of expected the ones that focus on the mental and emotional to also pick up with that. So I'm surprised that they actually haven't been out there that at all, really. So these essential oils are called psych essential oils. They're specialty essential oils. And just an interesting fact on it is if you look at these psych essential oils, generally they're from flowers. And I don't know about you, but when you think of smelling a fresh bouquet of flowers or walking through wildflowers all around you, you can see, you can feel your senses change. You can see your mood even shift with it. So, as we know, all essential oils, when you open a bottle, of course, it smells good and makes you feel good and calms you down or energizes you, but they do so much more than that. So, when we're working with these mental and emotional support oils, these specifically psych oils, we can use some of the classic oils, but psych oils are even better. So, they're actually going to be changing the chemistry in your brain. So, as soon as you start smelling them, that's one good way to start because it's actually triggering the different stress responses in the brain. So, dealing with your hypothalamus, your amygdala, all of the glands that regulate and tell you if you're under stress or not. So, they're going to be able to pull that back down as soon as you start smelling the oil, which is great. But the best is to be able to smell it and actually put it on your body. So, you don't ever want to take them internally, ever, but you want to be able to put them on your body. Because when we think about what happens with stress, sure, if it's a physical injury and you break your leg, then you're going to have pain, you might be crying, and then there's emotional stress that comes with it. Maybe you can't work at your job, you're not going to get your paychecks, and then things start to spin out of control. So, what about if we have emotional stress? Say we have a conflict or a relationship issue, somebody at work, somebody in our family. So, there's no physical stress that's happening to our body, but your brain goes in to recognize that there's stress involved. This can then take part in physical problems down the road. So, some of these specialty psych oils are going to help out with physical things, as we know it's so connected. So, if we have mental and emotional stress, sometimes that's when we'll develop IBS, or I think there's another name for it now, but irritable bowel syndrome and some of the other names. So, when we have stress too, we usually lose energy, we don't sleep as well. We just generally feel a little bit more negative. Again, that pushes us more into a feeling of depression or anxiety. So it keeps that ball rolling. And then perhaps we aren't going to eat as much or we're eating too much. And again, that spins out the physical aspects. So as we begin to see how everything is connected, you can use some of those classic essential oils that you might have in your cupboard. Manuka, eucalyptus, rose, frankincense, different ones like that. But when you feel a little bit out of control mentally or emotionally, that's when it's best to reach for these specialty psych oils. So as you go through the list, you'll start to see, because it's a little bit different. It's not like saying you have a clogged sinus area. So maybe then you're going to reach for eucalyptus to kind of drain that area. And put it on. But with these ones, because it's more mental emotional, you're going to have to read through and just kind of understand with your tuition and whatnot too what's going to be best for you, because it just develops that much more on feelings and aspect, because there's nothing specifically tangible that you can say, yeah, I broke my arm and I need something to help out with the wound or clean up and help with the white blood cells to fight the infection and do a general cleanup in that area. So, for instance, frankincense is widely known as the cure-all of all oils. I could disagree with that a little bit because I think linden blossom is right on the same par as frankincense for many reasons. But frankincense is known to be one of the best for a grounding oil emotionally. So if you are just feeling out of sorts and you can't, your head's in the clouds and you can't get back down and focus on tasks at hand, frankincense is a really good oil for just rebalancing the entire brain and just bringing you down to earth so you can focus on one day at a time. So in the classic list of essential oils that you'll see, you will see the physical aspects that I have noted generally, and then there will be a little bit of an emotional aspect, usually at the bottom of the paragraph or right up for each oil, so you can get a feel for what that oil will do. And then later down, you'll see the psych oil list. And so again, like I said, that is more just about feelings and emotions. So if you're feeling down and depressed, you'll notice in the write-ups there are ones that are going to say that they will bring you, help you feel more lighthearted, more happy. One of them kind of talks about almost like if you have balloons attached to your head to like lift it up, just to take away the pressure that you're feeling in your everyday life. And if you do have chronic or physical issues, that's a good one to add to it, just because it helps you just feel a little bit more carefree about the stress that you're dealing with on an everyday basis. And then as you go through, there's different ones where a couple of them say only one drop, please. So you're going to want to follow that one too, because some of them are just very, very powerful oils. So what's good to note with these specialty psych oils is the fact that because they don't actually affect directly the chemical responses in the physical of the body, it's doing a secondary effect on the physical, like I said, with the IBS and whatnot. So if you have stress, it creates physical. So it can help alleviate some of the physical, but it's not a direct effect for the physical. These ones are safe for everyone, which is really good, because when you look at the classic essential oils, if you're giving it to somebody or using it yourself, if you're pregnant, if you have kids under 5, if you have elderly ones that you want to give this to or use this with, you have to be careful. You have to check that they don't have epilepsy, or if they aren't one of those people, or if they don't have high blood pressure, just because those people are more sensitive. So these oils are going to affect them and could affect them drastically in a bad way. So what's nice about the psych essential oils is because they're just affecting the brain. They're very safe. They're very gentle. And you usually don't need that much. So again, you want to follow proper dilution rates for who you're dealing with. If you are dealing with somebody who is pregnant, elderly, or a kid, you want to do the safer dilutions, the lower dilutions, just because their body is that much more sensitive and they will pick up the oils and use them that much faster in the body. But these are great because they aren't going to create any physical damage or harm to the body. So they smell good, they instantly make people feel better. And so say you need that extra, that's what these are going for. So you're just completely overworked. Even if you have a good and happy job and happy family, you're so busy. You're not quite at burnout, but mentally you're just a little bit stressed, frazzled, just getting to the end of your rope. That's when you want to reach for these psych oils. So what type of stress are we talking about? So we can be talking about any kind of stress, for kids to elderly people. You can use some of these oils for those little tummy butterflies, nervousness on a car ride, or to pounding headaches or crying uncontrollably, or even such things as nervous breakdown and coming out of that. So say you're under stress and you don't have the mental ability to even sit and think about, why am I stressed right now, to look through the list. But as if you have any of the psych essential oils, that is one good way, is just to open up a few and smell them until you feel like you can actually relax, until you can start taking deep breaths, and keep using that one over and over again. But otherwise, it is better if you can look through the list and think about, okay, what is my stress related to? Is it a work related stress? Is it a family related stress? Is it my own personal chronic health issue stress? And then you're going to be able to see, okay, what do I need for that? Do I need something that's going to uplift me? Do I need something to feel like my head's in above the clouds, separated from life? Then I'm going to use the hyacinth and honeysuckle. Do I need something that is sweet smelling that just makes me feel generally happier? I don't have anything bad going on, but maybe my chronic health problems are a bit of a struggle, so I'm going to reach for osmanthus then. So, just depending on our needs, if you have that time and space where you can sit down and think about what it is, that's going to direct it better and you're going to get better results. But if you're just under extreme stress and you can't even think, any one of them is going to be able to help you. So one thing to note is some of these oils out there, they're not really out there too much right now, but some of them they can be classified as perfume oils, which in the aromatherapist world, we don't like to call them as that because perfume actually gives a different connotation, especially as we know over the years of what chemicals do to the body and what natural things and what the actual, like the man-made chemicals do to the body. So you might find them classified as perfume oils, but you do have to be very careful about that because they could actually be perfume oils. They could be created and man-made. So you do want to make sure that if you're getting any of these oils, that they are the classic natural essential oils. They're distilled, they're extracted by natural methods. They're not created, because I've seen that in many cases, and I've purchased from different companies just to test out because I saw some of their oils and they were extremely reasonable. And as soon as I opened the bottle, I could smell the difference. I could tell it was a perfume and not a natural essential oil. Okay, so some more in depth on some of the psychessential oils. For instance, osmanthus. I think I say that wrong a few times throughout the videos. So one of this psychessential oils, so as this one you can see, it actually has been used in history as a digestive aid too. And that's again because of what we said about working on the mental and emotional will then affect the physical. Because if you're stressed, like for instance IBS, irritable bowel, whatever it's called now, if that usually is because of a mental and emotional stressor that's occurred. So if you target that mental and emotional stress to release it, then you're going to release down the line to what that physical actually is. And so obviously too, this one is noted to be an aphrodisiac. So again, everything happens and starts usually within our brain and our nervous system, and the nervous system is the brain, right? So if we aren't really feeling that way, different essential oils, but especially the psych oils work as that, because if you're under stress, you're not thinking along those lines at all. So typically all of them are considered that because they're helping take away your stress. To note too, I like using the psychessential oils in other blends. So if I'm working on somebody who has pain and inflammation happening and we're targeting that physical, I usually want to incorporate the emotional too, because if you can picture somebody in physical pain and dealing with inflammation and maybe they're having a hard time walking or accomplishing things throughout their day, they're going to be a little bit more stressed out throughout their day and a little bit more frustrated. So when you're adding in those emotional components to it, you're going to ease that mental emotional side as well as dealing with the physical pain and working to release the lymph and get the flush and flow of the toxins moving through the lymph. So it just makes it like 10 times better when you're adding any of these emotional support oils to a blend if you make them. So like with the classic essential oils, there's so many good essential oils out there, and then there's ones that are just top shelf quality. So you've known or heard about frankincense essential oil, rose essential oil, and then there's those classic ones that are good for everyday use, scars, sinus issues. But when you're talking about ones that kind of work for a little bit of everything in the body, like a frankincense or a rose or linden blossom, that's the same thing that we have with the psychessential oils. So there's a lot of them that are in that general sense of emotional stress, and if you don't have anything too heavy or too stressful, extremely to deal with, there's a lot of good classic psych essential oils to use. But then there's the key ones. So typically osmanthus is one of them for being overworked that I found. That mental exhaustion type happening, not the physical exhaustion. Same with hyacinth and honeysuckle are amazing ones for helping keep that sweetness to life when you just feel like everything's all work and no play. Those ones are great for that. And there's a little bit of a difference between the two, as you'll see in the list. Also, there's tuberose. So that one is amazing for extreme stress responses. That hysteria, shock, just feeling like you're going through a nervous breakdown stage. That's one where it says that you're only going to want to use one drop at a time. So you want to be careful with that oil because it can be stupefying. So, so some of these you really don't need a lot of, and you will notice they're generally more expensive because they are typically made from flowers. So as you know, with rose petals, how it takes thousands to make a drop, it's the same thing with the psych essential oils. So they're classically more expensive, but you don't have to use as much with these because they're so much more powerful in how they affect the brain. So tuberose is one that I have worked with a lot with ones who've had nervous breakdowns, who different males that are processing really tough emotions and traumas, and ones who've been through all different kinds of PTSD syndrome, whatever their background is, however it came, that is one that I will use classically on someone with any kind of extreme stress response. And probably my favorite one, just because I think it's humorous how it's explained, is the roasted coffee bean oil. So that just sounds amazing in the first place, roasted coffee bean, and it does smell amazing. But what is interesting to note is that it is really good for just dealing with too many things at once. So, for instance, even in my workbooks, it actually says that it was an oil that was used by sultans who needed to counter the stresses of having too many wives and so little time, and the job of sorting and keeping control of large groups of hot-headed males. So just to look into the culture of the oils and where they were used, different time periods through life, essential oils have been used for thousands of years, but when you look at where they were used, why they were used, it makes so much sense. But when you think of now, today, everybody drinking coffee, I usually think of moms with kids, families, just trying to make it through. That smell of that coffee, no wonder it smells so good now when we understand what it actually starts to relate to in the brain. So it's actually an oil that is going to help you actually organize and think better and categorize in the brain better. So when you feel overwhelmed and you have way too much on your plate, like is mentioned in history and culture, what it was used for, when you have way too much on your plate and you need to keep everything in check, and you need to keep your head on your shoulders at the same time and not lose your own sense trying to deal with all these different things happening. So again, these psych essential oils specifically are so good because they're working on the brain, which is targeting the nervous system, which is then supporting the physical part of the body. So you're going to notice all different kinds of maybe stress and tension and heaviness throughout the body feeling better, just even by using these oils in general. But again, you're just going to want to go through the list and use a little bit of your intuition about what feels right for you, depending on how much you're dealing with. If you want it to be a little bit more lighthearted, if you need a little bit more organizational skills, like using the coffee bean, or if you just feel like you need to escape from everything and using those hyacinth and honeysuckle oils. Sometimes we need that too. So once you go through and see under the lists of the emotional stress, the depression, the anxiety, extreme stress response oils, and you will see the psych oils, of course, all of them are there, but you will notice some of the different ones, like perhaps there's mandarin or chamomile or immortal or slash heliochrysum. So with the classic essential oils, then with all of them, I'd say you're going to see those lists, but I'd reference back to the essential oil PDF that I have on the blog site, because then you can do a little bit of a read up just to see more about the essential oil itself and everything else that it encompasses. So what if you are dealing with anxiety and depression? Then I would suggest picking an essential oil that works on both of those. So look under both categories for anxiety and depression and say chamomile is under both of them, and that's a scent that you really like as well. I'd pick that essential oil so that you cover both instead of using two different essential oils. As you pick that one essential oil, say chamomile works for anxiety and depression, and then again, you're going to want to add those psych oils in. So, this is if you have time to sit and think about what it is, where it's coming from, your stressor. Again, if you don't have time, if you're just under major stress, just grab some of the psych oils and look for the different ones, the ones for organization, for lightheartedness, for that sorting or extreme stress response. So again, with the anxiety, depression, say you go for chamomile because it's listed under both, and that's a classic essential oil, you're then going to want to add a psych essential oil to that to add to the organization factor, lightheartedness or extreme stress response, whatnot, just to get that boost and to work on the brain and that aspect, targeting the nervous system, and then the physical aspect secondary.